You don't get to choose who your teammates are, but you get to choose what kind of teammate you are.
Welcome to Everybody Pulls the Tarp, the go-to podcast for high performers. I'm Andrew Moses, and each week I talk with Olympians, pro athletes, TV stars, Grammy winners, best-selling authors, CEOs, and other high performers to uncover their success secrets. Every conversation is jam-packed with inspiration and actionable ideas we all can apply to our own lives, personally and professionally. Get ready for a behind-the-scenes look at the techniques, processes, and mindsets powering the world's most successful people. Let's go. Hey, friends. This week, my guest is Colgate University men's basketball head coach and five-time Patriot League Coach of the Year, Matt Langel. Matt was named Colgate's head coach in 2011, and since then, he has led the program to remarkable new heights. Under his leadership so far, Colgate has achieved its first 5 20-win seasons in program history, 6 regular season championships, and 5 tournament conference titles. And in 2019, Matt led Colgate to the NCAA tournament for the first time in 23 years. And they've been back to every NCAA tournament since then. This past season, Colgate finished with a 25-10 record, tied for the second most single-season wins in program history. Amidst it all, Matt's leadership off the basketball court has been extraordinary as well. Colgate's graduation success rate is annually over 95%, ranking alongside the highest-rated academic institutions in the United States. Well, how does he do it? My conversation with Matt is a behind-the-scenes look at his career and the blueprint he's used to build Colgate into one of college basketball's most successful and consistent programs. The conversation you are about to hear is filled with powerful ideas on leadership, coaching, and success that apply far beyond basketball. I can't wait for you to hear this one. So, let's pull the tarp and get straight to Matt Langel. Where I want to begin, you arrived at Colgate in 2011, and I'm curious, what types of things did you see in the opportunity at Colgate that led you to believe that you could be successful?
Yeah, I think it was more about the opportunity. Success can be judged in so many different ways. I think that as a former student athlete who identified with academics being of significant value to the equation of student athlete, and then after 7 seasons working for my coach, Fran Dunphy, at both my alma mater and Temple University, I was looking for an opportunity to become a head coach. And so when you look at it, my experience was Division I. There aren't tons of opportunities where someone might want. I did know a little bit about Colgate because my brother had gone here, studied here, played a little bit of basketball here. So I knew the institution, I knew the makeup of the program. And the rest is really just kind of believing in yourself and the people you're going to surround yourself with to try and build a program. So it wasn't necessarily what's there to be successful, but it's in a great opportunity and someone who believes in you. And so you take that and run from it as a young head coach.
Were there opportunities that had come your way that you just felt like, even though it was tempting, you needed to kind of say no initially because it wasn't that right opportunity for you to take that head coaching opportunity at Colgate?
Not at that time. Again, I played for 4 years after school. I'd only been an assistant coach for 7 years. A little bit type A personality that you always want what's next. And for me, I felt like I'd been a part of successful teams, both at Temple, 4 championships, Penn, 2 championships. So I felt like the logical next step for me was to become a head coach. I knew enough about coaching and had grown up around enough people in the industry that I wasn't just going to go anywhere for maybe a higher level assistant coaching job. I only was going to work for people that I knew and did things a certain way. And so, for me, that next step was to become a head coach. These jobs are so hard to get, and there are so few of them. And then you look at ones where you're going to be relevant, right? Like I grew up in the Northeast, something in the Southwest part of the country or the Pacific Northwest. Like those opportunities just don't make a lot of sense for them to consider me. And so you have to think about all those things as you're looking for these opportunities. Sense, for sure. You talked about some of the successes we've had. I've gotten a lot of advice over years, and some of it's cliche that the grass isn't always greener or don't mess with happy. But a lot of people ask me, well, why are you still at Colgate? Why? I love Colgate. I love the program that we've built. I love the people that we work with. It's the same institution that piqued my interest when we first got started. So there have been a number of situations where, and it's flattering. And so you've got to kind of like make sure you temper those, that can be intoxicating to when people have interest in you or think you're great at something to go pursue the next thing. So since there have been a number of situations where this is the best thing for me at the moment and not to go chasing something else just because it's out there.
Coach, when you think way back to that transition, from your days as a player and then as an assistant coach, ultimately to the head coach at Colgate, I'm always fascinated to ask coaches about that first experience being a head coach and what they remember about the early days of that experience. Duke football head coach Manny Diaz shared an analogy with me. He's a parent. I'm a parent. I know you're a parent. He said, think of it like when you became a parent. You spent all those years, as a kid watching your parents raise you, being around great parents. And then you have a kid and you're like, I've been around parents. I've been around good parents. I have a good feel for what this is going to be like. And then it's really nothing like you could imagine. And you feel like so unprepared when the baby arrives. He said that's how he described it. I believe he was an assistant coach for 18 years before he became a head coach. And he became a head coach for the first time in his career at University of Miami. Went well there a couple of years and it didn't work out. He became an assistant coach again. And now he's the head coach at Duke. And he was talking about it through the lens of how much more prepared he feels when he's taking over the Duke program now as a second-time head coach as opposed to a first time. So I want you to go back to that first time as a head coach. I guess, what do you remember about those early days, surprising you? What do you remember some of the big challenges in those early days?
There's a couple. There's one, I think it was my first season. We didn't win a whole lot of games, maybe 8 or 9 in the season. And we beat Dartmouth at home, who also didn't win a lot of games that season. Again, I had only had the luxury of being a part of programs with great history and tradition in Temple and University of Pennsylvania, 2 of the top, I don't know what it is now, 10, but certainly 25 winningest programs in the history of college basketball. And we won the game in like a missed foul shot, tip-in type situation. It might have been overtime. I don't even know. And it was 2 teams who really struggled through the game. Like, it was almost like which team was going to be worse, was going to lose the game as opposed to somebody winning the game. And our players celebrated, like really, like almost like champion, like running off the court, lifting the guy who made the tip in. And I kind of realized, like, holy cow, there's steps along the way here. Like, we're not a championship program. We don't have all those relevant internal and external expectations. There are so many steps along this journey that we're going to have to go through. And I, as a young guy, I wanted to speed right to the result, but it really, I knew and I had been trained that the process is what matters. But that's something that always sticks with my head. Like, everybody in an organization has to kind of learn that. So no matter how prepared you are as the head coach or what have you, you gotta, everybody matters. Like, we have a young team right now, 11 of our 15 players are first or second year in our program. And so even though we have a championship culture, like, they don't know all the ins and the outs. And so some of that's going to be a learning curve to make sure that everybody gets that. But I always remember that game because I wasn't happy at all. We won, but like, we played horrible. The other team just made a few more mistakes, but you don't know what you don't know. And there's a lot of things to learn in any first time experience. And that's part of what makes it great.
It sure does. It sure does. You talk a lot about, you use the word process there. You talk a lot about the idea of building a process-oriented program. And I'm curious, what does, in your minds, like, how do you define process-oriented, and what does a process-oriented program look like? It could be basketball, it could be anything.
Yeah. It's a good question. It's without a fixed definition for me. I think we live, especially today's younger people, in a generation where everything is so instant, right? When I was growing up, there was a lot of really good basketball players in the country. I just so happened to grow up in an area with a guy named Kobe Bryant and a guy further up the New Jersey Turnpike named Tim Thomas, who were both very short, none and 1 year in college basketball before going to the NBA. But you couldn't go on social media or the internet and find out all this information, be it accurate or inaccurate or truthful or misguiding, like at the drop of a hat. And so now it's everything. Everybody wants some sort of instant result or instant feedback. And I think that the best organizations, the best programs that sustain over time really get caught in the day to day and the step by step. And as cliche as that sounds, like you've got to build it brick by brick. And so that's going through hard times and having some breakthroughs and making sure you're focused on what mistakes did we make yesterday that we can correct today? What did we do well yesterday that we can make sure we carry with us through tomorrow? And so you have to, especially in a leadership position, look ahead and try and navigate what's going to be there. But you can't always just be looking ahead. You've got to try and stay present and stay in the moment. And you can play great and lose, and that's okay. Sometimes it's an injury that affects the result. Sometimes it's just a bad shooting performance. I look back, oftentimes people ask me, geez, your first number of years weren't successful at Colgate. And I kind of make them pump the brakes because in year 4, we took over a program that hadn't had a lot of success. In year 4, we were second place in our conference, which is every coach's goal, is to try and compete for a conference regular season championship. And literally, if a guy on another team made a free throw with 0 seconds left on the clock, we would have been co-champions. And so there would be another banner hanging in the rafters. And everybody would have said, oh man, in year 4, you guys won a championship. And then you took a couple steps back, you had a younger team, and then you've been on this run that you've been on so long. So for me, we had a championship culture in that 4th year. The program was built on solid ground. It's just, we didn't get the result. And I'm not naive enough to know that in this profession, at certain places, I wouldn't have had those other chances, right? In year 5 and 6, when we didn't win a ton, we would have never gotten to year 7 through 13. So that's what we think about a little bit when we're talking about being process driven as opposed to just focusing on the results.
So to dig into that a little further, Coach, because that is something, like you described that beautifully there. I mean, when you look at from 2011 onward, you look at the record, right? If you just look at the record, it doesn't necessarily tell a winning story. And then things, from a record perspective, things start to turn in 2017, 2018, and then you've obviously been on this tremendous run. So let's look at that a little bit more deeply from both like the leader's perspective and then like from a leader. So I guess first, from a leader's perspective, what types of things are you doing or have you learned over time as you've gathered more experience? What types of things are you doing to make sure that you are seeing that incremental progress and those maybe small wins, for a lack of a better term? And then secondly, what are you doing to make sure that everybody else, even just inside the locker room, sees that progress as well and celebrates that progress?
Yeah, I mean, it's something we talk about all the time, but I think young people learn in a lot of different ways. So there's also things like, we just, the Olympics and USA basketball, and there was so much noise surrounding Jason Tatum and whether he was going to play or not play, and Jaylen Brown, who didn't make the team. And we just talked about what it is to be a teammate. And when you're a teammate, even at that level, you don't get to choose who your teammates are, but you get to choose what kind of teammate you are. And so little things like that. There's a play in one of our games where we were down and making a comeback in our championship run this past season. And a guy, Kyle Carlissimo, who grew up, obviously, coach's son. His dad, PJ, is a legendary college and professional coach and broadcaster. And you can see Kyle on the film on the bench stand up and put his hands over his mouth like that. It was a free throw situation, and yell out some directions to one of his teammates about something that was important to us. And his teammate executed what Kyle had been talking about, and we got an extra possession and got an and one. And you could see Kyle and his teammate, neither of whom were playing in the game, celebrating on the sideline, not just the play that their teammates made, but the impact that they had in the game. And so as a coach, like when you see that on film, I didn't know what happened during the game, but I saw it. And then I went and asked Kyle, like, what happened on this exchange, this interaction where you stood up? Oh, coach, I was reminding him of what his responsibility is in that situation. And so, like, I certainly, as much as we showed the play and the winning play that the guys on the court made, like what Kyle did in that moment with his teammate Alex, like that was extraordinary. And that is highlighting, spotlighting. You know, we talk about what doesn't show up in the stat sheet all the time, and then celebrate that in practice and in games, and whenever we can, we reward it as much as possible.
When you're recruiting athletes, and obviously there's a standard from a basketball perspective, that they have to meet. But what types of things are you looking for that might indicate to you that they're capable or more likely to do something like Kyle did there?
Yeah, it's the hardest part. If I could print that out for you and tell you, I could retire right now. But I think we all saw Coach Dan Hurley's segment that went viral about what he's looking for. A lot of us are looking for similar things. We don't have the luxury here at Colgate University of recruiting 4- and 5-star players who, are McDonald's All-Americans and are touted over. So we are looking for guys, one, who love what they do, right? It's never a chore or a sacrifice. I like to say, everybody says, well, you got to sacrifice so much to get to a certain level. You got to miss out on some things for sure, but it's not really a sacrifice if it's what you would choose to do. And so we're looking for guys who that's what they want to do. I mean, we've helped a lot of players improve and get better, and guys go from no other Division I opportunities to first team all league and player of the year and become professional players, but it's them. They want to do that. They're coming in asking for their coaches for extra work and film and chance to go back on the court later in the evening when we do those things. So one, we're trying to identify guys who genuinely love it. It's not just a part of what they're doing or they're good at basketball, so it's going to get them education paid for or whatever the circumstance. Two, we're really fortunate at a place like Colgate to recruit guys. What we have to recruit guys who have been successful academically. And so typically there's been some influence in their life, be it their parents, be it a mentor, be it a teacher, someone who has talked to them about the value of things other than sport. And so we're looking for people who want to come to this institution and be in a small classroom setting and want those things. Ultimately, that's going to help lead to their success here. The types of families they come from, the types of coaching they've had, how they treat other people, how they respond to adversity, their willingness to maybe not always be the star of the team. And, we've had some successful teams here and some guys haven't gotten all conference recognition or individual recognition because we've had 5 guys average double figures. Well, that's okay for them. It's more important that they're a part of a championship program than be identified for their individual accolades. So trying to, while you said find guys who are really good at basketball and try and explain to them what we are and what we do and have them be interested in that, also trying to identify all of those other intangibles that go into being a part of a winning team.
It's interesting, Coach. I mean, you mentioned academics now a couple of times, and obviously it's incredibly important at Colgate. I think you guys have a graduation success rate of well over 95%. I mean, consistently, academics have obviously been an important part of your life, studying at University of Pennsylvania, playing basketball at University of Pennsylvania, the Wharton School of Business. I'm curious, sometimes people kind of compartmentalize their lives and they say, when I'm here, I'm playing basketball. In the classroom, I'm a student. Do you try and help the students understand that these things can kind of work together? A lot of the conversations that I have with Olympic athletes and professional athletes, they talk about the benefit of playing multiple sports and that they're concerned that nowadays there's so much specialization that playing multiple sports, it's definitely helping you in that one sport that you ultimately go on to pursue more deeply. Are there things that you're doing actively to help the players understand that the well-roundedness, the work they do outside of the classroom, the work they do in the community actually helps them as a basketball player?
Yes. And what we try and do, it's real simple and it's a little bit corny, which also begins with a C, but Colgate begins with a C. For us, there's three main principles, and all we're trying to do is maximize our potential in those three areas. The first one's the classroom. Like, if you're coming to a place like Colgate, you've already achieved and already been identified as a highly intelligent individual. So if you're neglecting that part of your life or not taking full advantage of it, you may not bear the consequences until sometime well into your future. But it's partly our responsibility to say, you got to maximize what you can be. It's going to affect the rest of your life. The court, we've been talking about that. It's film study, it's nutrition, it's strength and conditioning, mobility, anything that can go into making you a better athlete. We want to help you get there. And the third part is just what you said of community. And so I find, and our coaching staff has been incredible about it, we're trying to model the behaviors we want from our student athletes. And so my family is the most important thing to me. I'm a father and a husband and a son. I talk about that all the time with our players. You're not just a basketball player. You're not just a student athlete. And we're here to support all of those other things that you're a part of. Like, yes, you have to, when you step in between the lines, compartmentalize, as you just mentioned, of like my focus. I broke up with my girlfriend, or I had a tough econ exam, or whatever. I'm homesick in my first year. I've moved across the country, whatever it is. Like, that's part of life too, is being able to say, okay, I got to be in the here and the now. And this is what matters the most. But you're not just any one of those things. And so we're always identifying others who find success and failures in those spaces, and try and talk about our own experiences in those spaces. And again, maximizing all parts of who we can be without ever compromising our priorities of those three areas.
Coach, I want to talk about this past season and where you're heading next. 2023-2024 season, you finished 25-10 overall, tied for the second most single season wins in program history, fifth consecutive regular season title, fifth straight NCAA tournament appearance. You used the word run before. You guys are on a heck of a run. I'm curious, you're having this run amidst the period of time when there's a lot of change in college sports, whether it's NIL, portal, other things, just social media just continues to consume more and more of the headspace for student athletes. I'm curious, I guess first, what do you think has been kind of the key to the consistency, not just having success once or twice, but consistent success when the team is different every single year? And then secondly, how do you strike the balance between celebrating a successful season like this one you just had and building towards the next?
There's a lot of layers to this question. It's something that my position I'm thinking about constantly. I've been really fortunate, in part, been able to identify some guys, coaches, and student athletes that we've been able to have great continuity. So I had a number of assistant coaches who have gone on to other great positions, head coaching opportunities, who stuck with this for a long time. Again, Colgate basketball and is not really a destination place for anybody. That's just the truth of the matter. It's a great opportunity, and some people recognize that, but we had a bunch of guys who stuck with what we were doing. So there's that familiarity, that ability to grow together, to learn from one another. We talked about a process, but if you're constantly adding new pieces into the process and removing pieces, then you can't stay in that process. It's almost like you're starting over all the time. And then when we've added some new guys, they've fit right in. It's been important to them to fit in, and they've been intentional about that, but they're individuals who value similar things and were attracted to come here for those reasons. It's the same with student athletes. We've had a number of guys, COVID, even before COVID, guys who chose, they could have left. They could have graduated and gone to other places. pre-COVID or with their COVID year, they could have left and tested out something else, but they chose to be here because they loved here. They loved their teammates. They loved their life. Again, we alluded to turning down other situations. Yeah, we've had some guys, a bunch of guys, go in the portal, see what's out there, talk to other people, trust in their coaches and their support system enough here to use us as resources to help them gather information and choose to come back. And so that's been a critical part. The team has changed every year, but some of that is just the roles have changed, that a guy now is in that fifth year role or in that captain role or in that preseason player of the year role. Whereas when he first got started, he was in a supporting position. The last thing I would say to it, Keegan Records was just, fifth year, first team all conference guy, a couple years. He fits what you just said, about could have gone elsewhere. And somebody asked him, hey, you've won all these championships. Which one was your favorite? And he said, the next one. And so when you have players who, yes, they celebrate one another, they very much enjoy the challenge at hand, but they also love the work. Again, that's who they are. They're not doing it just to say, hey, look at me, I won the championship. They're doing it because that's part of their nature is what's the next piece? What's the next challenge? That's so much more rewarding than just the destination point. And so we've had guys, that's obviously what we talk about, but we've had guys who that's part of their DNA, that's part of their upbringing also. And so I think all of those things kind of mixed in together has been a huge part of our successes.
Coach, I'm learning so much from you, taking so many notes. As we get ready to wrap up our conversation, I'm curious, if you think about yourself as a coach and a leader now versus the guy who took the head coaching job at Colgate back in 2011, what would you say is the biggest difference between you as a coach and leader today as compared to back then?
My gray hair. No, I think you just learn so much that what you talked about before about being a first time, every situation you're in as a first time head coach is the first time. Like, when are we going to leave for a trip? Where are we going to stay? How far in advance are we going to eat our pregame meal? Like, none of these have anything to do with what offense we're going to run or what's our scheme on defense or who am I going to play in the game? Like, everything is your first time. And so it can be totally overwhelming. And I think what I've improved every year. And do I make mistakes? Sure, a ton of mistakes. But I think it's much more easy now to say, this is who I am as a coach. This is what I value. And so we're going to concentrate on those things as we navigate what's going on, because we've been on those trips. We know that for me, it doesn't really matter whether we shoot around before the game anymore. Whereas like when I was the first time, I was like, we have to be so prepared. I have to make sure that, well, maybe their rest is more important than me feeling like we're prepared. And so having gone through those situations, you kind of learn a little bit more about yourself, about your program, and what's the right thing to do in those situations.
Coach, you talked about how family is paramount for you. And I'm curious, one of the common through lines that I see, having had the opportunity to talk to so many elite coaches, is the parallels between parenting and coaching. And I'm curious, what's something that you've learned as a parent that's helped you become a better coach, and kind of flip-flop, what's something that you've learned as a coach that's helped you become a better parent? Maybe it's the same thing.
Yeah, I have 3 children, 16, 14, 10, girl, boy, and they're all different. And we've raised them under the same roof with the same rules and the same schedule with the same empathy. And they're not all different in that, like, one plays the piano and one plays basketball. Like, their interests are all similar, but how they learn, how they respond to discipline, what their intrinsic natural interests are all different. And I have no favorites. And so, like, when players look at coaches, they say, well, he has got favorites. You don't have favorites. You're doing your job and trying to help everybody be the best version of themselves and try and fit it into what's best for everyone involved in the team and the program and the family. So I would say that that's something that has always been relevant. The other thing for me is, I think most coaches, sports organizations, they call it a family. They call it a brotherhood. I feel really confident that ours is. Our wives and significant others are around the team all the time. Our children are, some of it is the circumstances here and the makeup here are in the locker room all the time. I yelled at one of Keegan Records, the guy I was talking about. I guess this is like when you dunk and like you dunked on somebody's head, like that's a celebration. And when I was young, I wasn't big into celebration, probably because I had been coached that way, but it's something that I've learned. Times change and things change. So I was kind of busting his chops a little bit because he dunked and he was running back down the court, tapping his head like, I dunked on your head. I'm like, yo, Key, why don't you act like you've been there before? And, you don't need to do that. And he's like, Coach, I hear you, but I looked in the stands and your son was going like this. And so I had to give him one of these back. And so like the dynamic and back and forth, again, I tell parents of our student athletes, we're not going to tuck them into bed at night and make sure they brush their teeth, but we're going to treat them like they're one of ours. So that doesn't mean that they're always going to love me and agree with me. And there's going to be some hard times. But I think when we approach coaching in that space that we do parenting, then we can rest our head well at night.
Coach, I have enjoyed our conversation, and there is no question, as I like to say every week on this show, you're a tarp puller. You're a certified tarp puller. You live that everybody pulls the tarp mindset. I know the folks in and around Colgate University, everybody associated with the university are so thrilled at the job that you've done since you joined there in 2011 as a first-time head coach. Like I said at the top, 5-time Patriot League Coach of the Year, winningest coach in program history, coming off a remarkable 25-10 season, and still so many wonderful chapters to write. Thank you for spending a little bit of time with me this week. I know I've learned a ton. I know everybody listening has well.
Well, it was great to be on. I really appreciate you having me.
Thank you, Coach. We'll talk again soon.
Take care.
Thank you for joining me this week. Be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcast app so you can catch all of our upcoming episodes. And if you are like me and want a world full of tarp pullers, then leave a review to help others find us. You can also follow me on Twitter at Andrew H. Moses. That's Andrew H. Moses. And be sure to sign up for my email newsletter at everybodypullsthetarp.com/newsletter. I'll share tips and insights to help you achieve maximum success and happiness. Today is a great day to pull the tarp. I am rooting for you. See you next time.